Hello. My name is Blaze Pro, Vice President of Multicultural Marketing at HBO Max. We are honored to be back here at the 20th Annual Martha's Vineyard African American Film Festival. And it is my pleasure to introduce groundbreaking filmmaker and producer Edward Buckles Jr., the director of the documentary. Who will be in conversation with Floyd Rance, the founder of Martha's Vineyard African American Film Festival. We ask that if you share moments of this evening on social media, please use the hashtag Katrina Babies and hashtag Scene in Black. Without further ado.
Hey y'all, give Edward another round of applause, please. He did a phenomenal job.
Thank you, thank you.
Before we begin, Edward, just tell folks a little bit about yourself, professionally. We know a little bit about you personally, but just professionally tell them a little bit about yourself.
First of all, I'm super excited to be here. It's my first time on the island, and it will not be my last. I just extended my hotel stay.
Good, good.
But yeah, I am from New Orleans, Louisiana. I started off in theater, and that's how I got introduced to writing, which later led to me picking up a camera and documenting my peers. And it kind of just led me to wanting to tell stories, in this space. So I've been working on this project for the past 7 years. But what I did to make money was I occupied the music video space, the commercial space, while I knocked this out. I graduated from Dillard University down in New Orleans, HBCU, and I taught high school for 5 years. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one. I saw pieces of music video in the documentary.
Yeah.
Towards the end, I was wondering if you were getting into music videos, but you said you have already done music videos. So this was a phenomenal piece, a very poignant and touching piece. I'm really glad you did it. Now, what inspired you to do it?
I mean, honestly, I always say one of the toughest things about this film is like how true it is, right? I think that was the hardest piece of this process. Was when I was working on the film, I was also looking outside of my door, and it was reflecting what I was, So I think that what was happening in the city with young people is what inspired me to want to do this project. I think that growing up in a post-Katrina New Orleans and being exposed to so much just bad stuff, I think that by the time I got exposed to the arts, these were the type of stories that I wanted to tell. I think that specifically what inspired me, though, was when my cousin Tina, who's in the film, she called me during a holiday, and she was just crying about, not being able to be home because she's still displaced. And she heard that I was into theater, and she, told me, hey, boy, one day I'm gonna let you make a movie about my life, And that's when she started telling me about what my cousins had been through, and that's when something clicked. I was like, what if all of the trouble that myself and my peers are getting to in this city had something to do with them being in their attics, or them being, I guess, neglected, right? And that's when that journey started, honestly.
So you can correct me if I'm wrong. So you and your family, y'all got out. Y'all went to Lafayette?
Yeah, we are evacuated at the 11th hour.
Wow.
Yeah.
So in 1 more hour is going to hit, is that what you're saying?
No, at the last hour, sorry.
Okay,
yeah.
Right.
We
But your cousin Tina and your other cousins stayed.
Yeah, so that's what we put in the film, but, my dad's side of the family stayed, a lot of my family stayed, but my mom's fate, we normally don't leave. No one really evacuates like that. And my mom woke up that Sunday, it was like, yo, we got to get out of here. And, we was looking at her crazy, why? We gonna be good, but it's a good thing that we did.
So you're saying she listened to her intuition, is what you're saying?
She listened to her intuition, and my dad didn't want no problems.
Right, and he didn't argue with her.
Exactly.
Right, which is what a lot of us have to do is listen to our intuition. When it speaks to us, we have to listen, and especially in that situation. Why do you think a lot of people, well, I know why they didn't leave, because we typically don't leave when we hear of of that danger, or we don't believe in that danger, and we think that we can, I don't know, power through, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's a common phrase in New Orleans, you know, that the elders always say, you know, I rode out Hurricane Betsy, I'll ride out any other storm.
Right.
And that's how a lot of the elders in my family are, like specifically my grandmother, and, you know, that was just passed down, you know, to the children. So like passed down to people like Tina. It's like, you know, I'm not evacuating. We are survived Betsy, you know, and that was the worst hurricane up until that point of, you know, 2005. So I just think that, and then also I think that we love New Orleans so much that we don't really want to leave. And I would be, you know, it would be like a lie to also say that resources and, like, you know, access to just leaving, like that takes, you know, finance, right? You know, you have to be able to sit in 13 hours of traffic and like have enough funds to, you know, have fuel, right? Or get a hotel. So, you know, I think that it's complex why people don't leave.
Okay. So this movie for me seemed like that you were on a bit of a healing journey and that it was therapeutic for you. Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah. So, believe it or not, so earlier I said that I worked on this film for 7 years, and I didn't get into the film until year 6. And it was because of the fact that, you know, I was dealing with, you know, some like survivor's guilt, right? I was like, well, I'm not a Katrina baby. I evacuated, you know, I wasn't in the water, right? And I wasn't recognizing my trauma. You know, it was there. It was surfacing, but, you know, we on the move, right? We grinding. So I didn't really recognize it. And once I started making this film, and like once I started talking to my peers, and once we really got into the edit, that's when like things really started to click. And, you know, my team had been telling me since day one, you know, you need to be in this story. But I was very, 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 very resistant. And, you know, I don't really have much experience with like being vulnerable, you know, like I am in this film. So this film has really taught me a lot. You know, I'm able to be vulnerable now. So, you know, and I don't think that this film has healed me, but it has started the thought process to figuring out what that healing looks like.
Yeah. Did you seek any type of therapy?
Yeah. So when I first started editing the project, I was going through Family Archival, and that was when, you know, it really hit me that, you know, I was traumatized, like from the whole family situation, because I was going through Family Archival, and like I just broke down, and that was very unlike me. You know, I don't ever just like, you know, like cry like that, right? And that's when I really realized, I was like, oh, this is serious, you know? So, you know, I got therapy while I was editing this project.
Okay, good. So, and I don't want to get too personal, but I'm assuming that Katrina was thus far like the biggest and worst thing, most traumatic thing happening to you in your life.
No, I mean, honestly, I would say that it's the loss of Jaquez. You know, it's the loss of, you know, all the people who were murdered that we didn't have time to put in the film. You know, who were close to me. You know, it was the loss of my student Chantrell. You know, those were the, you know, I think that those were the most painful things that I experienced, for sure.
Yeah, you talked about your anxiety
Yeah.
that you have, which I'm assuming is like it's commonplace for a lot of African Americans in New Orleans. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Just having anxiety and all the being in fight mode and flight
PTSD,
mode
fight or flight. Yeah.
Right. So you learned about all that stuff.
Making this film, like, and that's the beauty of filmmaking, and, you know, that's why I feel blessed and honored that, you know, I'm in this space, because like I'm learning things that otherwise I don't think I would have access to. You know, I'm able to put names, you know, to things right now, because I think that sometimes like that's how they keep us out, right? We can't name it, so it ain't real, right? And by making this film, you know, I was able to learn about things like, you know, intergenerational trauma and secondary trauma and fight or flight, you know? So.
Did you pass it on to your students?
Oh, yeah.
You did?
I got a funny story. One time, you know, when I interviewed a expert for this project, she had just gave me a whole bunch of information. So I come to the class, and I gave I gave the students all the information. It's like freshman and sophomore, right? So the principal comes to my room the next day and was like, Mr. Buckles, we got to talk about the conversations you're having with these kids in this class, because a kid got in trouble, and then like he was like, this whole school is built off a prison mindset anyway.
Where did he get that from?
He wasn't lying though, you know what I'm saying? So like he can't even, I was like, well, he not lying, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, absolutely, I definitely passed. But like that's why I had to get out of there. I ain't gonna lie, like I had to get out of the classroom because like, I really want to do something much bigger when it comes to the youth of New Orleans. And if me putting my student on game and giving my student information is a problem, I'm in the wrong place.
So you're not teaching anymore?
I'm not teaching in the classroom anymore. I stopped teaching 4 years ago, to finish this film.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I love the animation in the project.
Thank you.
Can you elaborate on that? What type of animation it was?
Yeah, so we had this animator, his name is Anthony, and we always knew that we wanted to use animation in this project for a few reasons. So because of first of all, it's a lot of heavy stuff in this film, and we wanted to create like a language that like made people empathize more and like felt more, I guess, like receiving of the stories that were being told. And then also I just love art, and so does my mentor Chike Oza, and we knew that we wanted to use like real photos to create like this collage like vibe, right? And we borrowed inspiration from people like Jacob Lawrence and Deborah Roberts, who I'm a huge fan of, and we used like real family photos that we were able to gather, to tell like the real stories. So like those images of Tina and her stories, that's really her kids, So we just wanted to like create like a language to make people empathize and be more vulnerable to these tough stories that were being told.
This was your first doc feature?
This is my debut, yes.
Okay. And how did you meet Chike? Chike is he's like a, I don't know, how would we describe him? He's like he did the Kanye West documentary on Netflix, if any of you guys saw it. How did you meet Chike?
I met Chike, so Chike and I met when I was still in college. I was a freshman, and I don't really have any direct access to filmmakers, down in New Orleans. So when I first learned about him, he was running his company, Creative Control TV. It was both him and Cootie. Mm-hmm. And, I met him because he came to New Orleans to shoot a music video, and somebody introduced us. And then I just stayed in contact with him. And, I just told him that, like, I was really seeking mentorship. And that's something that, like, I preach to my students all the time, is just seeking mentorship. So finally, he started mentoring me, and, like, I just listened to everything that he ever told me. Like, even to this day, I still listen to everything. So, and he's actually the reason that, that, like, I decided to finally finish this film, because if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be here right now. I would still be making a film.
Is that right?
I didn't know, like, when to pull away, So every year he would ask me, like, yo, is the film ready? I'd be like, no, not yet. And he'd be like, come on, man, like, how long is it gonna take? So finally, during the pandemic, he was doing Genius with Time, and, like, he had told somebody at Time, about this film, and, like, they were interested. He introduced me to, his producer, Audrey Rosenberg, and, she got busy, and then we partnered with Time, and then we pitched it to HBO, and they brought it in the room. So shout out to Chike, and, like, shout out to mentorship, and, black people seeking mentorship, because that changed my life, because, like, on paper, I'm not supposed to be here. You know what I'm saying?
Well, no, I don't agree with that. I mean, you went to Dillard, right?
Yeah, but
you finished.
I finished.
You finished?
Chike had a lot to do with that too.
Oh, did he?
Yeah. So.
How so?
Because I was watching his work. I was watching his work in high school, and he went to SCAD, and
in Chicago.
In Atlanta.
Okay.
And I was really just basing, like, my life off of, like, all these mentors, right? Yeah, you know what? Maybe I said that wrong, because, like, what our God for you is for you. So,
right.
But like, I'm just saying, like, the conditions that I grew up in, I was never thinking about film, you know.
Gotcha. No, I got you.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be here in the film sense, you mean?
Yeah. Okay. Exactly.
Right,
exactly.
right. Because
Exactly.
you were not a street dude.
I wasn't a street dude, but I grew up.
With guys who were in the street.
Yeah.
Understood.
But you know, my mama didn't play that. So.
Right. No. You were blessed.
Y'all can tell, right? She did not play.
Yeah. So talk to me about the music. The music was profound in the film as well.
Yeah. Yeah, Osei and you know, and my best friend Shaq and my other best friend, you know, Ciel Rouge. When I'm a huge music person. I have a very sensitive ear to music. Like I listen to music all day, every day. I'm literally trying to balance it right now. But when I had my first call with HBO, you know, they loved the music that I had in my sample reel. And like, they were like, yo, so like, you know, tell us about music. And I couldn't even really explain it because like, you know, it's more of a feeling, like it's more of like a spiritual thing for me. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I was able to, you know, work with somebody like Osei, and, you know, he was able to contextualize like what I was feeling and also bring bring his instincts to the table. And I just knew that I wanted music to be a character and like be a companion and not just background music. Like I needed music to be a character. So the way that he's able to turn music into a character after Maisha first says, you know, no one ever asked me that, right? And like then like, you know, he creates anger through music, you know, and I think that that's just like something that I want to bring into the film space, you know, is like my taste in music, my taste in art, and, you know, my taste in language, right? So yeah, that's the music story.
So how did you, when you were making the movie, how did you land on that question of, you know, most of the characters, you ask them that question and they come to no one's ever asked me that. So how did you get to that point where you kept repeating it and made it somewhat of a theme where no one ever asked me about how I felt about what happened when I was 4 and with Katrina?
It wasn't me. You know, honestly, when I first started making this film, I did not know what the story was going to be. You know, I just knew that it was impulsive, right? You know, it was me being angry at the fact that, you know, these kids, because like at first it wasn't that the kids had never been asked. I was just wondering why we were being called bad and like not sad, right? So when like Maisha said that, like no one ever asked me and like started crying, that's when I really realized like that was also like a moment for me that validated this process. Because I was like, wait, this is serious. Like, you know, like she taught me something new. Because like I didn't realize that like kids had never spoken about this. And same with Sierra. So this wasn't anything that, you know, I put on like a beat sheet or like that I put in the outline. Mm-hmm. These were real moments. So earlier, like when I said the toughest part about making this film is how real it is, you know, that was one of those things.
Yeah. How did you select the interviewees? How did you do that? Yeah,
so when I first started on the project, and like I was going to Dillard, I I went onto Facebook, and you know I just asked, you know, for stories. I was like, hey, everybody meet me, you know, at this art gallery, and I want to, you know, hear about y'all's Katrina stories. And I swear, like, I got like 50 messages, like kids wanted to like talk about it. So, you know, I interviewed like a lot of people that day, and some of them were my close friends. So, you know, Maisha, and Damaris, who, you know, I was in school with, and you know, she's the one who stayed like in the trailer and wound up getting cancer. And that was another moment that like validated for me, like when she came on that first day and said that was when I realized like, you know, the weight that this project would carry. But, you know, I really just wanted to talk to people who were willing to share. And I wanted to talk to, you know, the children first. And it just happened to be, you know, it was my friends. Like, everybody in this project is somebody I have a personal relationship with. I think that that's what made them trust me with their stories. That's what made them vulnerable. So, you know, shout out to all of them for, like, just being soldiers and, like, allowing me to share their stories like on a stage like this.
So when you guys came back from Lafayette, your house was, what was the state of the house?
It was a lot of wind damage. We didn't have much rain damage because we lived on the other side of the river. Mm-hmm. So the water didn't go to that side. It went the other way. So we had like a lot of wind damage.
So it wasn't obliterated. It wasn't.
No.
Oh, okay, that's great.
It wasn't. But my grandmother's house and obviously Tina's house was gone. So we had to have family come and stay with us, just until they got their, houses together. And like, it's funny because it's not funny. It's actually sad. But it's 2022 now, and my grandmother's house gets flooded and messed up every year, and like she has to call insurance every year to get her stuff fixed.
Because of floods?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Off of tropical storms.
Tropical storms.
Yeah, but that's a whole different conversation. I can go on about that all day.
Yeah, I mean, I think for some people, it's a way of life.
Yeah.
At a certain point.
Yeah.
But I guess, speaking of trauma, I guess it's not good because you become used to it, and it's like you don't even know that you're being traumatized.
Yeah.
By the weather and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where that whole double-edged sword of, I guess, resilience comes in. That was a big piece of this project for me. I really wanted to make that point. I think that some of the conditions that we live in New Orleans and some of the accountability that, city and government officials don't have is based on how resilient they think we are, and how we go ride it out, we go be good. Look at them dancing in the street, they good. So I think that it's not just us who, are like conditioned to the trauma. I think that it's also being planted, and people are turning like a blind eye to it because we're resilient.
Do they have a disaster plan? I'm sure they have a better disaster plan now. Are you still there?
No. I actually just moved last year, to New York to finish this film, but okay. I go back like every few weeks.
The folks are still there?
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely.
And so is there like a better that you know of?
I mean, last year Hurricane Ida hit, and that was another huge storm. People lost their homes. I mean, I'm sure that there's a plan. I don't know how strong it is, but Hurricane Ida was devastating. People were in their attics for days. Houses were lost. I don't know how much coverage it got nationally, but it was bad. So and just on like a random day, and if you live in New Orleans, you can amen this, like, it's like on a random rainy day, your house might flood. And you might have to contact insurance. So I don't know if the plan got, like, maybe like there's a plan in place.
Yeah, more so an evacuation plan, because I think the biggest problem was for the folks who didn't have any resources, car, money, that they had nowhere to go. I think that was the biggest problem. Like, you guys had a car.
Yeah.
And so the worst was waiting in the line to get out.
Yeah.
But if you didn't have a car, if you didn't have any money, then you're just really kind of stuck.
Yeah.
They didn't have buses lined up to take people out.
Yeah, I mean, again, like last year during Hurricane Ida, it was the same thing as Hurricane Katrina. The only thing that was different was not as many people died, and I just really have to say I think it's because of the social media era, and like young people stepped up to the plate in New Orleans, and like literally we were giving out generators, and we were going help people like get out of their homes. So I don't know if the government has a plan, but I know we're not sitting around and waiting no more. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that makes sense. We're going to take questions. Get your questions ready, please. So tell the audience, what were your biggest takeaways from making the film?
Biggest takeaways? That's a hard one. I was doing good too, huh? I got one. I think that one of my biggest takeaways was just, I didn't have a budget for this film, until post-production, so until year 7. And my biggest takeaway, like, from this film was, just the power in leading with story and, like, leading your journey with story and, like, knowing that you want to get a story out. When I was in college, during my senior year, I got the opportunity to, intern under Spike Lee's production on Old Boy.
On the levee.
No, on this movie called Old Boy.
Old Boy, okay.
Old Boy. And, you know, one thing that, like, you know, he, like always told us was like, yo, you know, you can have an iPhone and, like, have the best story and, like, you know, you could make a great project. And, you know, I think that one of the biggest things that I learned was just not always trying to work up and, like, work with the best, you know, equipment, but, like, sometimes just working across, like, working with people who are literally right across from me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I totally know what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. And
use what you got.
Use what you got and like use who you have.
Right.
And like stop just like trying to work with the biggest people because like that's gonna come. And maybe one day you'll be the biggest, like bigger person, you know? So that's one of the biggest takeaways. And like that's something that like I want to preach to people who have non-linear paths to this stuff. I guess that's my time.
No.
check. Yeah, you know, people who have non-linear paths to these industries.
So what takeaway do you want the audience? What do you want the audience to take away from?
Oh, okay. You meant the film.
No, you answered it right. You answered it right. But what do you want the audience to take away from the film?
I mean, you know, this film is not entertainment. Obviously, like this film is impact. You know, when I first had my meeting with HBO Docs in Time, I was like, yo, you know, just understand like what you're signing up for. Like, this is impact. Like, I really care about my city. I really care about young people, you know, and I just really want people to, like, New Orleans, like, everybody loves New Orleans. People love New Orleans. Like, people love New Orleans during Essence Festival and during, like, festival season. But it's just, like, I want you to see the humans who are there and, like, you know, what they're going through and, like, what they're dealing with. And, like, I just think that when it comes to the conditions, we need resources, we need access, we need pipelines, we need platforms, we need like a lot of stuff, you know, because like we are a beautiful, powerful, brilliant people. We just need our conditions changed. So that's one of the biggest pieces that I want people to take away. And then also I want not just children, but everybody to just like, you know, pay attention to their trauma and like don't ignore it because it's going to surface one way or another.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They have to become aware that they were traumatized. You
Exactly.
know what I mean? And I think a lot of times you go through these traumatic situations and like you said earlier about resiliency, you know, you tend to build up this armor, this Teflon, and you're thinking like, oh, I'm tough, I can do it, I can go through it. You're not realizing that you've been traumatized over and over and over and over, and then you end up in that fight mode. I wanted to ask, I just forgot my question. Does anybody have any questions from the audience? Okay, go for it. No, we're gonna go over here first, and then we'll come back. Thank you, Charlie.
I know you addressed first of all, the film was fantastic.
Thank you.
Use the mic, please.
Hello. I wanted to tell you, first of all, your film was fantastic. I'm glad that you brought that up as a conversation piece because that has impacted our community heavily. But my quick question was, do you have any plans to have a documentary for the parents of the children?
Yo, that's a great question. So I have never seen my father cry ever in my life until the first screening of this film, and he was literally crying. And so when you know after the film, and like I still get chills and goosebumps thinking about it. He was like, "Bro, like I'm sorry, like you know I'm sorry, you know, like, you're right, we were wrong." And like, I was like, no, like, that's not what this film is saying. You know, I'm not blaming the parents. And then, you know, he was like, so like, I asked him, you know, what part did you start crying on? No, I'm sorry, I was teasing him because in the film, on the very first question, when I asked him about his Hurricane Katrina experience, he was like, good question. So I was teasing him because I was like, you know, he's just being a good father, like, you know, just trying to, you know, like, seem super, super interested. And, like, he was like, nah, like, that was really a good question because, like, nobody ever asked me that. Seriously. And that's when it hit me. And, like, he was like, nobody ever asked me about Betsy. You know? So I do think that there's an opportunity, you know, there. Am I gonna be the one to tell that story? I don't know. But you know, I did have that conversation with my parents because, like, again, like, I was just teasing him thinking that, you know, he was just trying to be supportive, but he was actually having a real reaction, like, nah, that's a really good question. Nobody ever asked me that. And I think that, I'm sorry, like, I think that that's what I was talking about when it comes to like the intergenerational trauma.
Right.
It's just like, nobody ever asked him, so why would he ask me?
Right.
You know, so.
He had never asked you.
No.
Y'all never had a conversation.
No, like after Katrina, we came back and we kept it pushing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Next question.
Thank you for this.
Oh.
Over here. Oh.
Okay.
So first, thank you, because being from Florida, it's very common to say you're going to ride out a storm. And so I feel like too often people will ask that question, why did y'all stay? It was very common to stay. But one thing that you said that was very powerful when they said why they keep saying we're bad and not sad. And given that you've worked in the school system, what would you say, either a new policy or practice or even something you did or you wish you did to help students kind of process that so they can be able to be successful in the classroom, but also having the challenges that they're still kind of managing? What did you either see that worked, or what would you wish that could happen given that students are still kind of experiencing this?
Thank you. You're from New Orleans?
No, I'm from Florida, but
Oh.
we get hurricanes every year too, so
Oh, yeah, right,
we
right.
stay.
Right. Well, I mean, that's a great question. When like I was a teacher, I learned about something called a trauma lens. Now, when I was in high school, we didn't have educators and people in education was not operating with a trauma lens when they should have been. And what a trauma lens is, it's understanding that your students are traumatized. And you don't just jump to discipline. You jump to understanding. You jump to conversations. You jump to giving them some time to process whatever they are experiencing, because it's not personal. Sometimes it's a traumatic response. It's a trigger, right? And, you know, I kind of wish that the school systems down there operated with a trauma lens, because, like, to this day, I think that we need it. But I think that, you know, we believe that every child in New Orleans can learn, but we don't believe that every child in New Orleans can behave. And it's like, well, fix it. You know, like, do something. Like, meet us in the middle. You can't keep blaming the children. Maybe meet in the middle so that we can dance, you know? So I think that that's one of the things that I wish changed down there.
You got to stand up and just say it.
No, it's okay.
My name is Sheena Foster, and I actually am from New Orleans. 2000 graduate at Dakar.
Come on, believe that. I went to Dakar too.
Grew up in Algiers, and I think I saw you because I was having a trauma response watching this, and I walked out and was like,
Yeah, I did see you, yeah.
And so, because there's a book called The Body Keeps Score, right?
Yes.
So, and it talks about like all the trauma that you experience, and me like witnessing this was just very difficult to watch. But I got the courage to come back and finish it. There, in the video, the kids were talking about the gentrification and how now they're seeing white folks take over in New Orleans and neighborhoods that they can't return to. And we know that some of the reasons why is because there were like not proper transfer of deeds. I think it would be a great opportunity to capture, like, we know the 20-year anniversary of Katrina is coming up, to do a look back of like what New Orleans was then and now, because
Absolutely.
back in 2005, you weren't going to find houses on MLK for $300,000. And for me, as someone who grew up and was born in the Ninth Ward, raised in Algiers, lived in New Orleans all my life, to like see the differences and how Algiers still looked the same way it looked when I was coming up, but like other parts of the city are being invested in. I think it's an excellent opportunity. And I just want to take a picture with you, hug you, say hello, because the kindred spirit. And then I looked you up on Instagram and I realized that you and my brother are following each other. And his name is Chris Foster from Chris Foster.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Damn, that's crazy. That's my dude. Like, so he and I went to Anthony Bean together.
Yes. And
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
also an aspiring filmmaker too. So
Yeah.
I sent him the video letting him know that I was here seeing you.
For sure. Like, that's my guy. And, you know, I definitely just want to address because like when I walked in with my team, you know, I looked back because yes, like I did see you crying, and the reason that I looked back like that was because I still feel like, you know, we need to figure that piece out to screen in this project, and like I've been talking to my team about it, you know, like about impact. Like we have to, like we can't just show this film and just like allow people to just go off and like just deal with it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, you know, I've been trying to figure that out. But yes, I definitely think that, you know, that's very important. I mean, I was doing a interview yesterday, and it's like, if you look at New Orleans pre-Katrina and like New Orleans now, it's split differences. And like, even if you know, I was telling them about my students and just like what that does to identity. It's you know, like a lot of these children really don't know who they are. And if you don't know who you are, self-destruction.
Yeah.
And like we're seeing it, you know. I remember, so like, you know, in New Orleans, we really rep where we from. Like we wear it literally, you know, in our skin. And when I was asking my students where they from, like a lot of them didn't know where they were from, or a lot of them move around so much. They're like, oh, you know, I call myself 4'9", and like, you know, I call myself 4'9" because like I'm from the 4th Ward and the 9th Ward. You know, because like maybe I moved to the 9th Ward because the 4th Ward got too expensive. You know, so I definitely think that that's important to zoom in on.
Where are you from?
Should I stay in?
I'm from the 3rd Ward, and due to some violence that happened in my family, my mom wanted to get us away, so we moved to the West Bank.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
One last question.
yeah,
Excuse
so
me.
I'm-
What up?
Hi, how are you?
I'm good.
So I want to say I'm so proud of you.
Thank
we
you.
all are. I'm also from New Orleans, live in the Lower Garden District today, and my best friend and I are here. We're watching it, and we were actually at LSU in Baton Rouge when Katrina happened. And when you stated that, you know, you felt like you shouldn't have been included because you weren't in the water, and we're sitting up here tearing up, crying too, watching it, and we're like, man, it's been 20 years, and why are we crying? We weren't in the water, but we felt it, right? Yeah. And so to kind of end on this note, I think I echo everybody where we're like, you could go this way, you can talk about how LSU responded to it because we protested the way they responded to it, right? But I would like to know what's next for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Shout out to all the New Orleans people that's on the island right now.
The NO.
We out there a bounce party. But nah, like, you know, just to touch on what you said first, like, it's survivor's guilt, right? You know, like some of us experience survivor's guilt, and like what I learned by making this project is trauma. You know, like no matter, like, you know, sometimes in New Orleans we are compared traumas, and it's like, well, you know, like even Kelvin is like, you know, like I only got hit one time, right, like whatever, and like in his neighborhood somebody might be like, man, you good, whatever, right. But trauma is trauma. So I think that, you know, I'm glad that I was able to recognize, you know, my trauma. And really, what's next for me, I just got to keep it a buck. It's like we have like a long process of impact for this project. I'm going to give you my media training answer. I'm just nah, but we all have like a long process of like impact, like, you know, for this project. But I am working and writing, you know, stories about New Orleans. Like people always ask me, what do you want to do next? I want to keep doing stories about New Orleans.
Good. Did you have an outline when you outlined it?
Yeah.
But so you just had questions?
Yeah, so I did index cards that I learned from Cootie and Chike. Mm-hmm. I did an outline. I was drawing stuff. I did almost everything, you know, to like figure out this project. You know, I watched like a whole bunch of reference films. I did almost everything to like try to crack the story because it took me until year 6 right. to crack this story.
And I'm guessing the licensing, was that an issue?
Well, HBO helped with that. You know, shout out to HBO. They're in the house too. Like they all help, you know, with the licensing, and like, you know, helped us to be able to license their archival that we saw, and like their family archival that's in the film as well. But yes, but also because I am a subject in the film, and because this is a personal story, I was able to do something that is called fair use, which is, you know, I have a right to that footage because, you know, it's about me.
Right.
You know, so we were able to fair use a lot of stuff.
Understood. One last question.
I'm Dr. Richard Gardner from Chicago, Illinois, pediatric medicine physician, and I first want to thank you so very much for the work you've done and how you brought out the real life of people who were involved in Katrina and how it speaks to Dillard and our historically black colleges that produce individuals like yourself.
Yes, thank you.
My question is, your film has such great impact, and so is there a way that you'll be able to use what you've done to go back to New Orleans and to help become part of the solution, you know, maybe through the health department or some other entity?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I mean, that's who I am. I mean, like, that's what I stand on, right? You know, I stand on helping New Orleans. Like everything that I'm doing right now is to help New Orleans. Like, being here right now is because of the fact that, you know, I want visibility. I want people to see us. I want people to hear us. You know, this ain't really like, you know, like about me at all. Like, this is about my students. This is about the conditions. I truly believe that this film is just a very small part of the conversation that like needs to be had, and you know, and the impact that needs to be had. My team and I are working on a very, very, very big impact plan in New Orleans that it's taken us a while to figure out because it's tricky, right? You know, we can tackle this from like a policy level. We can tackle this from a on the ground level, like, you know, like needing it now. So, you know, I am trying to figure it out, but, you know, I did understand that, you know, it can't just be on me, you know, like, it can't just be like, you know, all of the weight on me. You know, this film is a part of my impact, and like, I'm trying to encourage my peers and like, you know, encourage other people to join me in this fight to like fix what's happening in New Orleans. Because again, I'm also a Katrina baby, you know, so I'm also trying to heal. But yes, like, that's what I stand on, you know, trying to figure out how do we better New Orleans, how do we better young people down there, for sure.
Please give Edward Buckles Jr. a round of applause. Thank you, brother. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I truly appreciate you.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. It was
Thanks
great.
for coming out, y'all. Thank you.
Yeah, it was great.